Hey guys, as much as I've loved living in Colombia for the last 3 years, there's definitely some challenges that come with it. And that's what I'm going to be covering in this video. By the way, I've made this list so that it's relatable to the most amount of people. However, some of the things on this list actually don't bother me. For example, number one, which is the no dar papaya culture that Colombians have. No dar papaya literally translates to don't give papaya, which is a sweet fruit found in Colombia. Basically, the context of this phrase means don't be an easy target. So in other countries, there's more of a culture of being very sympathetic to a victim of crime. Here in Colombia, that's not so much the case, especially if you might have been doing something that led to you becoming a victim of crime. I know it sounds kind of weird, but when you live here, you get used to it. But this can be very challenging for some people. Let me give you an example. So when we say no dar papaya means don't be an easy target, one of the main things you can do to be an easy target here is be flashy. Walking around in the street with huge gold chains, with an Apple Watch, with a Rolex on the other one. These kind of things are prime 10 out of 10 papaya giving tactics. If you tell any Colombian that you got robbed, they ask you, oh, why? What did they steal? And you say, my gold chain, then they're going to think you're an idiot and they're going to have no sympathy for you whatsoever. This is one thing that you really need to get used to and accept, or else your time here is going to be very frustrating and very challenging. Whether you can do it in your country or not, doesn't matter. Some things here in Colombia just shouldn't be done because they make you an easy target and make you papaya giving target number one. The second thing you might find challenging if you move here is the language barrier. If you don't know, I lived for a year and a half in Mexico before I got to Colombia, and Mexico has seen tourism for a lot more years than Colombia. So a lot of the people in Mexico will speak English. I was learning a bit of Spanish, but I barely had to use it when I was in Mexico. But when I got to Medellin, I really had to take my Spanish to another level because less than 5% of the total Colombian population speaks any form of English. So if you want to move here, even doing day-to-day tasks is going to be very complicated, let alone making deeper connections, making Colombian friends. You're really going to struggle, and it's going to be a huge challenge if you don't put some time and effort into really learning Spanish. Now let's move on to the next one. Number 3 on the list is getting the latest and greatest. And I'm talking about things like clothes, electronics, cars. All these things are going to be, number one, maybe not even available in Colombia. And number 2, if they're available, they're going to be well overpriced. Let's talk about something that everyone might want at some point, a phone. Electronics like that are going to be much more expensive in Colombia because they have to pay import tax on everything over $200 in value. You'll even see this on Amazon. If you try and order something over $200, you're going to be hit with almost the equivalent in taxes. So that can be really difficult if you like tech, if you like the newest clothes, if you need tech for your work. A lot of people just opt to fly to the US, pick up the stuff there, and then fly back to Colombia. By the way, if you're enjoying this video and you want to see more just like it, I release videos every Sunday. So to stay up to date on that, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Number 4 is probably something that you definitely know if you've ever been to Colombia, and that is customer service. Customer service is on a completely different level here in Colombia, and not on a good level, let me tell you. Most people working these customer service jobs, unless maybe you're really in the heart of the tourist area, they don't really know about customer service. If you go to a restaurant, you might be waiting 10-15 minutes to actually get the menu. You might have to go down and actually chase down and find out if someone's actually working, and then tell them that you want to actually eat, and then they'll come and give you the menu. Get used to this because this doesn't just apply to restaurants and things like that. This also applies, the lack of customer service I'm talking about, to professional settings. You could even go to a viewing of an apartment, a real estate deal, or even a rental, and the agent might not even show up. This has happened before to friends of mine. They've set a viewing for an apartment they want to buy. They go there, the agent doesn't even show up. They call the agent, no response. And then the next day the agent will just message them like nothing happened. Or even worse, make up an excuse that, oh, you know, my grandmother got sick or something. Never say sorry, never apologize, and just keep moving. This can be super frustrating, especially if you're from a country where customer service is great, everything moves really fast. This is really going to be one of the things that you need to get used to if you want to live in Colombia and not pull out all your hair from frustration. I think you kind of have to take this one hand in hand with one of the reasons you might want to live here. Many people get away from the US and other developed countries because in those countries, everything's just hustle, work, grind. It's very different here. People are more balanced. They like enjoying their life whilst working at the same time. And that's what I think kind of leads to this attitude towards customer service. This next point kind of has to do with customer service and doing things efficiently, and it has to do with doing things online. Every single Colombian website that you use, whether it's a business or even government websites, forms that you need to fill out to get your visa or get an entry into Colombia, all of these things will be broken, and they'll be broken for 5-10 years and no one will ever fix them. There's one specific thing that maybe you've already done. It's the Check MIG form. This form is what everyone needs to fill out when they enter and exit Colombia. This one has had the same error on it for about 5 years. Everybody knows about it, but yeah, they just don't want to deal with it. They're just like, good enough. We don't need to fix it. And that's a common thing you're going to see with websites here. Nothing is great. Many things are bad, but the majority of things are just good enough. Now we're at number 6 of 7 in things that are very challenging when it comes to moving to Colombia. And this one goes hand in hand once again with the slower pace of living and balanced lifestyle. This one I really don't like because I personally feel this is lack of respect for someone else. You foreigners, if you've been here, you're going to know that this is one of the most frustrating things, and this is Colombian time. So where you're from, if someone tells you you have an appointment at 5 o'clock, what time would you arrive? Maybe 4:45, maybe 4:50, maybe 4:55, maybe 5 on the dot. But in Colombia, many times early means 5:30. On time means 6 o'clock. They might even come at 7 o'clock with no apology and no explanation and just talk to you like nothing happened. There's no being early. There's no being on time. Everything is late. Many people, I've seen you in the comments as well saying that, hey, whenever I organize to meet up with a Colombian and I want them to come at 6, I just tell them the meeting is at 5 o'clock. And then I just show up at 6 anyway, and then they're still late. So this can be very frustrating if you don't know how things work here. But let me tell you, after a while, you're just going to get used to the slower pace of living, and this is not going to be such a big deal. And that leads us to number 7. And unfortunately, as I said, the time thing is not that much of a big deal because this can be just like going out for dinner with someone and they come a little bit late, whatever. It's not the end of the world. But this next thing, number 7, is super, super frustrating because you're not going to understand why it works like this. It just does. And you're going to ask questions. No one's going to give you any good answers, but such is Colombia. And what I'm talking about is systems and processes. Recently, I got my marriage visa. To get it, I needed to acquire a set of documents and then submit it. And after it was submitted, I needed to go to the immigration office 3 separate times. And each time I went there, I needed to wait like 2 hours. The first time I went, I needed to get a transcript that showed both mine and my wife's travel history so that they could match it up and see that we're a genuine relationship because we've been traveling together. Usually in most countries, you can just get this online, but I had to go to the immigration office. I had to stand in a line. It was almost an hour and a half before we got even served. For us to get served, my wife actually had to ask, hey, is anyone working here? What's going on? Everyone's just sitting around and no one's being called up. And immediately when she said that, everyone kind of got their shit together. But before that, there was 5-6 staff just standing around looking at the phone, doing nothing. So that was the first time I went there. Then once my visa was approved, I had to go there a second time. This second time I waited about 2 hours and basically all I had to do there was show them my passport and get a photo taken for my ID. This also could have been easily done online. And at that point, I still didn't have my Colombian ID. And if you don't know, you need a Colombian ID to basically do anything here, like opening a local bank account. And to get my Colombian ID, they said I needed to come back again to the immigration office a month later. So basically 3 visits for something that could have been done very, very easily in a matter of minutes online. And you're going to find this over and over and over and over again in Colombia. There is no system or processes set up that make things efficient. It's like doing things in the 80s. But despite this challenge, as well as the other 6 I just mentioned, never a day goes by when I wonder, should I ever have moved here? The lifestyle that I have now is much, much better than I had back in Australia. And I'm happy to deal with a couple of frustrations if it means I'm allowed to live here. Now that we've got the negative stuff out of the way, if you want to switch gears and go positive, check out this video where I've listed some of the best reasons for living in Colombia.